Today is Friday, August the 16th. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors of the Community Improvement District at Port of the Islands, and as is your custom, we'll begin today with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone. We should note for the record, while we don't see them, I believe all of the board are here today. We have both Ms. Hanson and also the chairman who are participating by phone. Is that correct? Yes.
I'm on.
All right, Mr. McNamee. Annalise, are you on?
I believe Annalise is in a doctor's appointment today or this morning.
In the event that she were to join us before the end, Dave, I would just ask you to let us know for the record. Otherwise, we have a quorum. Today's meeting was properly noticed. A copy of the affidavit is on file at the district office. And the vice chairman will kind of chair the meeting today in the absence physically of the chairman. So that takes us down to item 2. Which is the approval of the agenda. I have no additional comments.
Hey, Neil, if I may, and I apologize, if you could ask the board to adopt the motion to approve the remote appearance by Mr. McNamee, the chair, due to exceptional circumstances.
Thank you. We'll incorporate that, Tony, as part of the approval of the agenda. The notice that.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda and allow participation by phone?
One thing on the agenda here, I think we were going to move up the utility operations right to the front.
We will, and Matt's here, and so we'll do that as soon as we approve the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the?
Could we also introduce our council that's there today?
Yes, Mr. Pierce is participating by phone only as it relates to the item pertaining to the Parcel 13 update. Ms. Brakefield is here as partner of the firm and is knowledgeable and represents Tony in those rare occasions when he's out of town. In addition, Mr. Carter and I are here from the staff.
Great.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second? Second. There's a second. And again, that will recognize the participation by phone for our 2 board members who are out of town if necessary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any? That passes. Public comment. Any members of the community here today? We just ask you to stand in the middle so that you can be seen on the teleconference, and give us your name if you don't mind.
Charles Gordon, Peacock, Wayne. I've got 2 comments. On the agenda, you have Orchid Cove Lake Bank mowing. That was explained last week or last month. It wasn't mowed because of the water, too wet. I went over this morning along 41 where you put in bushes. That wasn't mowed either. Why isn't that on the agenda?
I can answer that question. I can answer that question. Robert Soto is going to be there on Monday morning to mow the CID's property. And I also mowed that lawn, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and probably a third of that was standing water. And with my small lawnmower, I was able to mow all of that.
But why are you picking on Orchid Cove for the pond and you ignore over on the other side 41? It's not
We've already addressed that it's going to be mowed on Monday. We're not picking on you.
Well, it sure looks like it.
Why, did we say we were gonna fine you or something?
I don't know what you can
Well,
do.
we aren't, so relax.
But Joyce explained why last month.
Okay,
So why is it on here this month?
Because it was mowed the following week, and I was just going to have that reflected in the minutes. I don't consider it any big deal at all.
No. Well,
If I could interject, this is Steve Gunther. I'm a board member at Oak Cove. We mow that area periodically, as Neil just recognized or mentioned. It was mowed basically 3 weeks ago. We're scheduled to mow it again. I really don't see this is a big issue again. It is an additional cost to us, so we are trying to be financially smart about this and mow it. But with the amount of rain we've had this summer, it's required it. But this, I think, is at least the third time, if not the fourth time, we've mowed it this summer. So again, I wasn't aware this was on the agenda, but as far as what Chuck is saying, I'm not sure why this is a CID issue.
It came up, as you know, at the July meeting, and the only reason that it appears back on the index was I was going to have recognized in the minutes today that it has been mowed since your last meeting, and if other areas are scheduled to be mowed Monday, then, I mean, that's fine, and we move on.
Yeah, let's please do that. And in the future, if you guys ever have any concerns about it being mowed, rather than wasting meeting time, please contact me.
I don't know that there were any concerns. We talked about that, and we talked about a small horticultural pile of debris across the road at the hotel. And, you know, I think sometimes people, because there is no master homeowners association here, they come here out of a desire that we meet monthly. We have a forum, and we talk about a wide variety of things. And I'm always quick to you know, advise the board when things are not our responsibility, like code enforcement. But thank you for your comments. And
I've got another one.
go ahead.
In the past, there's been comments about engineering costs, legal costs, overruns to the budget. It's continued for this year. The same thing goes on. It's gonna go on because you don't know what your costs are gonna be. But why hasn't the people that complained before this board took over, why aren't they complaining that it's still going on?
I don't know, why don't you ask them?
Pardon?
Why don't you ask them?
Well, I saw somebody come in that was the complainer. And
Our costs have been cut substantially on engineering. And a lot of the engineering that we have done is going to be reimbursed by the people who are using that engineering. I don't know where all this hostility is coming from.
but Steve, you know what went on prior to the board being elected. And
Yeah, we raised the
the
numbers.
same problem you have to deal with month after month, but you don't hear anything about it.
You're flat out wrong. We've changed the numbers considerably. You're flat out wrong.
I would bring up one thing this way. I would bring up one thing on the legal costs. The two lawsuits that we're still dealing with and trying to close right now were here long before we came around. Just so you know, and that's a part of it.
It's still a fact. You have a budget. It still has overruns. You don't have control over either of those.
We don't see the engineer here anymore, and he was charging us for every meeting, so that's a cost savings.
Well, we've done some things, we really
We
have.
did.
But you haven't done anything either. There has been no capital improvements. Have there?
Capital improvements. Do you want to start there, really?
We gave him an opportunity to express his concerns.
Yes.
Are there any other public comments from members of the community this morning? And if so, thanks again. Just make sure you give us your name and your neighborhood.
Yeah, Curtis Moldenhauer, President over at the Marina. I'd just like to thank the board for what they've done in trying to be physically responsible. I've talked to a couple of my members. We've got a dredging committee, and I've already talked with Steve and Dan. Hopefully they can get together and maybe kind of help out with having any cost to the community as the Corps doing dredging down south in Everglade City. See if we can kind of get along with that. I know there's some other engineering costs. Talking to people throughout the community might be able to cover those costs and try to help that out.
Thank you.
But I'd like to thank you guys very much for what you're doing.
Thanks, Curtis. Final
Thank you,
comments?
Curtis.
Frank Lee, resident Villages of Stella Maris. Wanted to thank our management company. I called and had some stuff and got a response in 12 minutes. That was neat. I really appreciated the quick information. The second thing is, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, one of our residents, Dallas, has put together a thing, and everyone at Port of the Islands is invited to White Horse Key at 11 o'clock. Bring a sandwich or whatever you want, and we'll just pull the boats up and come together as a community. And if you don't have a boat, there's lots of people going to places in their boat. I'd like to make sure everybody knows it's out there. There's a thing on Nextdoor, you can go and on Facebook. So White Horse Key, 11 o'clock, and thank you very much.
That's tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Thank you. Item 4
I'd like
today.
to comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to respond to the gentleman about the engineering fees, since I was one of the ones that were writing a lot on that. The reason I'm not writing on it is I'm looking at these fees, and I see that it's for work that's actually going to be reimbursed or actually done. When I was writing about it, it was because there was $600,000 in the budget just for reports from the old engineer. $600,000 was budgeted for a report on the irrigation. That's why I was up in arms and writing on Nextdoor about that. These fees that I see are legitimate. The fees that I saw from the engineer was just a way to take advantage of our community. So I hope that answers part of your question. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Joe Levy, Windward K.
Thank you. Item 4 today are the minutes of your July meeting that are in 2 sets. The meeting was convened on July the 19th and continued and then reconvened a week later on the 25th. They have been reviewed, and Ms. Hanson has seen these in advance, but you can entertain any amendments or a motion to approve.
Anything? Steve, anything?
I have no changes that I've seen.
Is there a motion?
The attorney had no.
Tony, have any?
Tony did. I thought that he had emailed them to you, but hold on, let me.
Oh, while we're waiting on that, I'd like to say one thing. The gentleman that just got up and addressed the board, I hope that we don't make you feel uneasy about doing that. I appreciate the fact that you can come up and speak your mind whenever you want to do it. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you want to go ahead and read his text message?
Yeah.
Suggested correction to the minutes from July 19th for the budget hearing on the budget and the levying of assessments. Need to state that the public hearing on the budget and assessments was opened by, quote, and list the name of the manager or chair or by motion of the board, however it happened. Next, it should say a budget presentation was made by Mr. Dorrell, including that Mr. Dorrell advised that notices were sent out and published in the newspaper as required by Florida statute.
Anything else on the 19th?
One other thing he said, also need to reference the hearing was closed before the motion was made to adopt the two
I've got that.
resolutions. Okay, great.
Was there anything further on the 25th? Very short, set of minutes, page and a half. If not, then we'll entertain a motion to adopt as amended with those additions suggested by Mr. Pierce.
I make a motion we adopt the minutes as amended.
I'll second it. motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Under the manager's report today, our custom is to skip ahead, get the utility operations report following the minutes. Matt is here. Matt, good morning.
Morning. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right, my summary for the utility operations at the facilities throughout the month were in accordance with our contract and regulatory requirements. All wastewater plant requirements were met. All water distribution requirements were met. Reuse pump system for the plant is working well. The canal pump station is on 2 pumps. The wastewater facility received 1.94 million gallons of wastewater in July. We produced drinking water 2.66 million gallons in July, and we distributed 6.23 million gallons of reuse in July. We disposed of 28,000 gallons of sludge. We did not have to read meters this past in July. Used 500 gallons of chlorine. We had no water usage complaints. We inspected all of our pump stations, performed our odor control checks. Work is continuing on plant upgrades that were previously approved. Some additional maintenance we did. We placed a pressure sensor on the air compressor at the plant. We installed timers on the mixers at the plant. We repaired a leak on the RO, just a bad gasket. Generators were serviced. I don't know if you saw here, we lowered all the sewer laterals to grade instead of sticking up. They were like this tall, just for aesthetics. And we flushed all of the hydrants in the community, as well as replaced a non-working hydrant.
Is that the one that was covered in the black bag?
No, that's another one we need to replace. We discovered that one while we were flushing. So we're supposed to do that for the fire department when we find one that has any sort of issue with it. We did all of our safety training, performed all of we had no OSHA related incidents and no safety incidents or overflows anywhere. That's it.
I had one question.
Yep.
During the tropical storm, there was a loss of power here, and the new generator did not initially activate. My understanding was we thought there was a problem with the transfer switch, but in fact, I spoke to Mitch about it, or I talked to FUS about it. Apparently, it had something to do with the throttle and it was a warranty issue. It was not a transfer issue, and the Cummins or Caterpillar representative came from Fort Myers. And can you just elaborate on that, or what knowledge you have about that?
Yeah, so the generator, the new generator, there was actually 2 things kind of combined that happened. When we lost power, the transfer switch did switch to the generator started, but the mud daubers had built a nest on the voltage regulator that caused it not to ramp up. So all it would do was idle. So when the well came on, it was running and supplying voltage, but it wasn't providing enough amperage to actually pull any water out of the ground. And then when we got power back, the transfer switch didn't switch back on its own, so then we had to manually flip it back over. So we've ordered the parts for that. The repairs are not complete yet, but as soon as it's done, I'll let you know. But we're on top of it.
And Mitch indicated, though, that system is routinely tested and documented I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly, but the generator is tested and there's documentation concerning that.
Correct, yeah, we have a log sheet in the plant, both generators, the main plant generator, the guys check it daily. They record the engine hours because it runs, I forget how many times a week it kicks on and runs for 30 minutes. So all of them, the one on the well road, I think we check it twice a week just to see that the hours have gone up, so that we know that it started and ran, and that the fuel is gone, we check the fuel to make sure it stays topped up.
Do you know at that time when you checked that it transferred, it didn't just run, but the transfer switch?
I don't think it transfers when it does its test run. I think it stays on the power grid.
So when do we do a full test with the transfer and everything?
We probably do that quarterly, or maybe we should do that more frequently.
Probably.
Yeah, I know we do it. I mean, we get enough. I mean, every thunderstorm I get all the alarms for the plant on my cell phone. So every time the power flickers, all of the computers in there send me an alarm that even if it's just a flicker that we lost power.
Right.
And then so I'm able to tell if the generators are running or not via my phone. And then if it's not, that's how I knew it wasn't ramped up, because I could see it running, but the wells said they were on, but they weren't pumping any water because the flow meters were all zeroed out. So,
Okay. And the part in question is a warranty item?
they haven't let me know that for sure. I started the whole process. You have to send it in, or you have to send them your model serial, they get back to you, then they want you to send a video of it running and the whole, they didn't.
If you get a determination from them one way or the other, and I've asked Mitch the same thing, would you just make sure that we're aware of that? But
Oh,
I wanted
absolutely.
to make sure that get incorporated into today's discussion too.
Yes, absolutely.
And he called me within minutes when I called him, so thank him for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan had happened to call me while the power was out over there, so.
Okay.
All right.
But we also have plenty of water storage, so there was no danger because of that glitch, correct?
Correct. We had a guy on site within an hour just to see if there was anything we could do ourselves. And, like worst case scenario, all the power in the well road fails. He would just grab a generator from the plant here and tow it out there and plug it into the panel and everything would be up and running. But the storage tank stays at 23 feet and I don't think we got below 20 feet, so.
Very, very good. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, no problem. Yep.
A few weeks ago, you collected water samples.
Mm-hmm.
Has any result come back on that yet, and will it be shared when it does?
Oh, the lead and copper sampling? Yeah, we have all those results back.
Are they going to be shared with the community?
That's up to the board. I mean, they all came back, underneath, within the guidelines that they're supposed to be.
Okay.
And you sampled
Lead and copper. It's every 3 years.
lead and arsenic or lead?
Lead and copper.
Okay.
So they have we have a sample plan from the DEP, and we give the bottles and a sheet to specific homeowners that are on that list.
Okay.
And then they take the sample first thing in the morning when the faucet's been off for more than 6 hours.
So you're sampling our processed water?
Yeah, drinking water, yep. From like a sink tap at a homeowner's house.
Okay.
Yep, and we were underneath all of the required levels.
All right, a couple questions. One, the disc filter.
Yep.
Is that scheduled for installation yet?
No, we don't have it yet.
You don't want to
So
start?
we're waiting for it to show up. Not yet. I'll ask Mitch and see if I can get their information and start emailing them about that.
Okay.
Get them their rate.
Anything else left on those repairs that we put in for the permit and stuff?
I don't remember what all was on there. I know they redid all of the recycled pumping, old PVC with HDPE, have the new motors. I know there's a new mixer on the ground over there. We need to finish the return lines from the other clarifier back to the plant. So there's probably, if you don't include the filter, there's a week or two worth of work plus the filter still to do on that.
Still with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it's not complete yet.
But our main capital improvements are progressing along as anticipated, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
I just have a couple questions.
Yep.
We were talking about the power going on and off daily out here. Does that have any effect on any of the computers or anything at the plant?
It hasn't. So in the past 30 to 60 days, I've put, those like computer battery backups. All of our control panels everything is programmed in the control panel. It's not operated off the computer in the office. So if the computer in the office died, the plant would continue to run as normal. So I actually put some of those in the panels themselves and wired them in so that when the power does fail, I can still see what's going on at the plant versus just being in the dark. But other than that, it doesn't really have any effect on it. Sometimes it trips a breaker if we get a surge or something. But
And our new SCADA system would help that, right?
yeah, the new SCADA system is what's in all the panels that I'm referring to. It's got a PLC in every panel that's programmed specifically for what it's controlling. And that feeds data back to the computer, which is how I interact with it on my phone.
That would be another capital improvement.
The SCADA?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a major improvement. I mean, that made operating the plant night and day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And, well, there's one other thing. When I was leaving the other day, I saw a big crane coming in. Was that for the cell tower, or was that for us, or what was, anybody see that big blue and white crane?
There's a blue and white one? It wouldn't have been for us. We have our own crane. It's all white though.
This thing was huge.
Oh, yeah. They said somebody's working on the cell tower back there, the operators
Yeah, I
did.
haven't been there. I just saw it.
I think it was after the power went off. I think something happened. I don't know if there's a lightning strike, but when LCEC did the repair on the well road, they were back there for hours. So I don't know what they were, I don't know if the transformer blew or what happened.
All right, this big, I mean, this was a huge,
Yeah, it had to be.
extendable crane, you know.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
As always, have a good weekend, and we'll follow up with you on anything involving that generator.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Kevin, question for you real quick, because Matt's up here reminded me, did we ever collect that bill from the hotel for fixing that major leak that they had?
I've contacted them several times, have not gotten a response. I don't think that they paid it yet. I would need to reconfirm that again.
Brought up my memory about
I know.
backing up or something.
Item B today is a little out of sync. So the next item in your agenda book, I've got 2 license agreements for your parcel across US 41 that has served as a staging area for marine contractors in the past. So actually, the first one I'm going to talk about in the book is item 5B. This is a license and use agreement for that property from the South Florida Water Management District as it relates to their Picayune strand manatee protection mitigation feature. And I initially was not familiar with that project. I spoke to Mr. Truckee, did a little research on my own, and in the backup materials today, there are some exhibits. Just south of the main boat basin within the community is an area of uplands that may have been cleared in the past. There is what to me appears to have been a meandering tidal creek that has previously been approved. And apparently the district has plans to do some additional work in that area that apparently entails a large amount of riprap and geotextile fabric to help harden some of the shorelines there. Apparently this is an area that is intended for warm water habitation during cold outbreaks in the winter when water's not spilling over the weir. I say all of that to say I read the backup material further, and they even want to bring what I would call a construction field office or construction trailer in here. And additionally, they wanted to have diesel generator supply for electricity. I would not be inclined to recommend that because of the adjacent condominium communities. I don't want to field the calls for the generator running all day or through the night. I think if that is something that you're inclined to allow, I think we would need to ask them to bring in and put a temporary circuit breaker panel and construction sort of meter and supply. I wouldn't be in favor of a diesel generator over there, but
They brought a big barge in last time, hauled everything in a barge.
they would do that. And I'm thinking moving riprap back and forth. I don't have a further definition of what the scope of work entails, but it apparently would be long enough that they want to bring some sort of construction field office in Porta Johnson.
So we're talking a couple months. for
Excuse,
sure.
excuse me, can I want to talk about this. Something just popped into my head. I've been talking to Soto and other residents about that lot that we own over there. The last time I mowed it, a good third of it was underwater because it was never final graded and it holds water like crazy, which I'm assuming probably is creating some mosquitoes. I'm wondering is if we make an agreement with them about this, could we include maybe plowing up that lot, leveling it all out, and then we could and then during the rainy season we plant grass back into it. That's just one idea that just popped into my head. Another thing is I've got that property on the other side. I hesitate to even make this, but in the interest of working with these people, you know, if they wanted to make some kind of an agreement to put a diesel, you know, way over on the other side there, that's not out of the realm of possibilities either. But I don't want anybody thinking that I'm using my board position to make this happen. It's something I'm putting out there that it's a possibility. I know that Dan is working with these folks on other issues, so it's to our advantage to try to cooperate with them. But I'll do whatever the board thinks. It's there if somebody wants to use it.
Well, I've received this request last week. I indicated to him that I would see the board today, and that at our meeting last month, you did talk about sort of formalizing or having a standard license and use agreement that could be provided to either marine contractors or in this case, the water management district. I'm certainly not opposed to them, you know, working in the waters that they're responsible for, especially if it benefits the community and the interests with manatees. I have concerns about temporary power, and I've expressed those, but I wanted to see what is the pleasure of the board today. Are you inclined to either offer the standard agreement that came, as I understand it, with a fee of $5,000 that would be due and payable, or some in-kind service that they would provide along the chairman's lines, that maybe they could do some grading over there. But I wanted to make you aware that I've got this request and have you give us a little direction.
I guess I'd like to see that they have a projected project timeline. So is it a month? Is it a week? Is it 6 months? What are they thinking on a timeline? I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Or at least have an estimate on that. And then I think that the agreement we talked about before was for a very, let's call it a short-term use, where they would come in with their truck and the Southern Exposure, one of the other dock builders would come in and drop some pylons, load them on their barge and go on, and they usually don't use it for more than a day or two. This could turn into months with equipment store, a lot of storage. If they're going to use riprap, you're talking about dumping truckloads of riprap on there and things. It's a much different type of use than it would be for the dock builders. So we might address that. I don't know if you want to look at addressing that differently, because this would be a long-term, and the contract there would, well, it's probably the same in the short-term one, that if they dump riprap and tear it up there, they're going to have to level it back out and reseed it or sod it or something.
Yeah.
So it's not all dirt, because they'll have big equipment in there to move that, so.
I'd be concerned about the seawall.
Yeah, we always have the seawall in there because one of the other operators did damage the seawall and they had to re-pour part of the cap. But the seawall certainly has to be all around every contract.
If you're inclined to consider their request, I'll get some additional information. My understanding is that this is a project that began in 2019 and, you know, required environmental review and permits, probably both the Corps and the district. I'll get a better definition of what they intend to do in this final phase, and also express our concerns about diesel generators, and at least asking them to consider, if they're going to have equipment here, would they consider doing some in-kind sort of services as part of the agreement.
Perfect.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, also, Neil, in part of your conversations, perhaps ask them if they have like a staging site plan. And as you mentioned, and Mr. Truckee mentioned the idea about the wrap, where are they going to store it, how many vehicles, what part of the property do they really want to utilize? And where will they enter it off of the main road? So I think those are factors, Neil, that you were planning on talking with them about. But I think it's important to have a graphic sort of plan, site plan as to what in staging plan.
Okay, I made that note too. Item A then, the next item is also a license and use agreement concerning a prospective new home on Case Drive, 140 Case Drive, or Wilderness Cave, not sure which. Unfortunately, our point of contact on the board prior to now was Ms. Hanson. There were a number of encroachments within both the rear and the side yard drainage easements. This is a very large home. Those have all been resolved, including the outdoor condenser and units for the air conditioner. The only remaining reason for the license agreement was to construct some little marine lumber crossovers over the swale, which have consistently been allowed in the community, and perhaps some lighting. Kevin, did I miss anything here?
No, yeah, the two items that are in our drainage easement, pathway lighting, which was 4 poles, and a raised wood bridge over the swale. Those were the primary issues.
They continue to, it looks like here on the paperwork, they're gonna have a 6-foot fence and a gate on.
No.
No, that's to be taken out. I'm here, Lisa.
Okay, Lisa, that comes out. It's still listed on.
We haven't in the past allowed gates and fencing in our drainage easement. And in particular, those drainage easements are very important because they take the water off the street there. We already have issues with water on the street there, so that couldn't remain. That's my opinion. I don't think a gate and a fence in our drainage easement on either side of that house is a good idea.
Glad to hear that.
I agree with that also.
I mean, we spent the day digging that out, a bunch of us, so that we'd have good drainage there, and we do maintain it. So you can't put something in it and expect it to work as it should.
Okay, so noted.
We need to protect those neighbors also that are next to them.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so then all it is the pathway lighting and the bridge.
Correct.
Okay.
So I would ask the board to entertain a motion to authorize the easement use agreement subject to Ms. Hanson's suggested change, and have the chairman sign it.
Well, it still says in that first statement there, it still says front 25, side 7.5. I thought we were 10 on the sides.
We are.
Well, RS4 zoning setbacks per Cuyahoga County. We aren't per Cuyahoga County, we're per Port of the Islands, and we're 10 feet,
Yes, correct.
not 7.5. That very first grouping.
Yes, I see that on the sketch.
The sketch says 10, but the side print there says 7.5.
It says that's within the county's land development code.
Good catch, Russ. We need to maintain that 10 feet. That's Port of the Islands procedure. We need to do that. If we're going to allow that to be 7.5 feet, we'd have to do a rule change.
Well, the drawing looks like it might, I don't know, it's hard to say, but the drawing says 10, but I don't know if
It
that's.
says 10 feet crosses all side lot easements on here.
Yeah,
But they do have it spelled out as
there could
75.
very well be a difference between the county's standard side yard
Well, there is.
setback
There
and
is.
then our platted drainage easement is a totally different matter. So, in the event that they were constructing anything within our 10 feet is the reason that we've developed this license agreement. I'll clarify what I just said, but with the
I can see it. It says-
elimination of the fence and the gate, resulting in the only encroachments being the landscape lighting and the little bridge crossover to the dock. Is there a motion to authorize the use agreement?
I'll make
Annalise, go ahead. Annalise, you made the motion.
I have.
Mr. Truckee, did you make the second?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any approved? Thank you. That passes unanimous 5-0. And Annalise, I made a note that you joined the meeting at approximately 10:05. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thanks and welcome. Item D today is a project that we have been working on with Mr. Baird. We provided the board with some of the concept sketches and the preliminary estimate of probable cost for new entry landscaping. Wow. And I just wanted to share these with you. Mr. Baird is, we've got some plans to also consider some improvements on the other side of the road. No action is required today, but I thought we're at the point where we should have a discussion and get a little direction as to how is it that you would like for us to move the project forward going into the new fiscal year. Kevin, did you want to offer whatever comments you had? Because I know you met with the landscape architects and staff on site out there.
Right, well, yeah, she come out, she looked at the 3 different entries, which is Newport Drive, Case Drive, and Union Road. And she's provided sketches, initial drawings of what her ideas are. And she's also come up with estimated cost moving forward with the 2 out of 3 that I have right now. I have not received Union Road yet.
And just, I know that Steve, you and Annalise may have seen this. The material list cost is currently, with contingency, $93,000. And it was also.
Can you give us a quick summary about what's included in that 93,000? Because I am not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I haven't seen it.
Okay. And again, these are not construction drawings. These are the initial estimates as to what the product costs were. The product costs for the proposed main entry are $77,550. The majority of that, or the main elements of that, are 8 specimen coconut palms. There are also 2 specimen reclinata palms at $7,000 a piece. There are 14 total sable palms. That represents about just a little less than half of that. Total material cost. The balance are for shrubs and grasses, both on the streetscape as well as the area that is identified as the gatehouse medians. And then there's additional $4,000 for native grasses on the adjacent masonry concrete walls, wind walls. $5,000 for mulch. And then there is an irrigation contingency or allowance of $5,000 and some initial allowance for removal of existing material of $2,000. That brings the total project cost of $84,550 and then a 10% contingency of $8,400. That gets us to 93.
That's on the Newport side.
Yeah. And it's similar for the K's entry, but about half the amount, the amounts in terms of product or 32,700, and then 5,000 for irrigation, 500 for removal, and then 3,800 for a contingency, an additional $42,000 or 130,000 total for both the main entry and Case Drive. And as Kevin alluded, we have not yet received an estimate for the Union Road.
I bet the Union Road would be about the same as K's.
I would think so.
Rough and tough. Another 40.
So again, my interest for putting it on here today was this is the first time we've shared it, had an opportunity to discuss it with the board. Originally, we had talked about maybe having a further project cost and some construction plans prepared to share with the community early this fall when people begin to come back to town. And by then, get an updated budget estimate for whatever work might be contemplated for Union Drive.
Okay, I got a question. Okay, once upon a time, I don't know where we're going with it, we were talking about gating the entrances. Should that be incorporated in this plan?
If we're going to do it, I think it should.
Yeah, and I would have you, I would tell you this, because you own those roads, you are eligible to have a gated point at which you can perform what the Attorney General calls access control. Because they're public roads and they were built with bond money, we don't have the ability to deny access as though it were a private roadway. But you do have the right to control access into this community. And by that, I mean that you can ask or require people to produce a government-issued photo ID. You have the right to know in advance their license tag number and take video images or still images of individuals in the car and that sort of thing. And so we have clients in particular at Pelican Marsh where we do that at 3 different guard gates in Naples. Public roads.
Neil, quick question, Neil. If those are public roads that we cannot control, why are we not getting any funding then to maintain them?
Because they're owned by the district, as is the case at Pelican Marsh and both Tiburon, as opposed to the county as a function of how they were originally approved when the zoning was authorized years and years ago.
So
and the county,
then, does
county,
that go? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, beginning in about the mid '80s, the county's land development code was changed to require going forward that residential communities with residential or collector streets have a master homeowners association or equivalent to own those roads, because they didn't want to own, the county did not want to own residential streets because of the long-term maintenance and operating and replacement costs. And so the county really got out of that business in probably the mid to late 80s. And it's since that time, either the district or the Master Homeowners Association would be responsible to own residential streets. Having said that, they make some exceptions where they're arterial roads. For example, Lely Resort Boulevard is functionally classified as an arterial road because it connects to 2 other arterial roads, Rattlesnake Hammock on the north and US 41 on the south. And so they want to own arterial roads because of the overall benefit that they get to be able to disperse and move traffic. But when it comes to residential streets, we own them, and any comparable community like ourselves would have to own theirs as well.
Well, I'm curious about that then, because if we own them, how is it that we can't control the access to them? Because you're saying they're public roads. Does that public mean Port of the Islands public, or public meaning anybody in the world can drive on them?
Public meaning that anybody in the road has an opportunity to pass through them after we perform access control. And that has to do with United States Treasury opinions related to tax-exempt municipal bonds. And so when the bonds were sold, there had to be a valid public purpose for the bonds, and the fact that the original developer probably got that capital at 250 basis points cheaper than he could have gotten it otherwise because they were tax exempt. And so in order to meet the eligibility requirements, there's that public purpose benefit that has to be derived. But you still have the right to stop them and require them to identify themselves and take pictures of both the car and the tag and the individuals in the car.
Very good. You explained that quite well. As far as the landscaping stuff goes, I'm wondering if we could put a committee together of a board member and people from the community to have input on this. My initial reaction to this, and I just heard this, was where are we going to spend $40,000 at the beginning of Kay's Drive? In my opinion, I don't see it, but there again, that's just my opinion. I would like to have a lot more clarity about what we're looking at doing on these things, and I would like people from the community to have a chance to be on a committee or do something to have some involvement on this. I don't, this is definitely something that the whole community should be in on.
I agree, and there needs to be some buy-in, but we staff have received the preliminary information. I wanted to share it today so that we can incorporate it into our minutes. And going forward, my suggestion would be that Mr. Baird continue to work to get the final cost. If you want us to also work with our civil engineer to get some budget estimates for some hardscape to include a gated entry and kiosk and that sort of thing. We can develop that if that's the pleasure of the board.
I think that you already explained to us that this whole kiosk thing and stuff is really not doable. I know in the past, Frank Lee suggested maybe just an arm coming down long enough so that a camera can take a picture of who's coming in and going out. That might be within our budget. I think this whole idea of a gated community with kiosks and all that is just way more money than we can afford to put 3 of them things in on.
Again, that'd be a policy discussion of the board. My understanding too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is the district does not actually own that gatehouse across the road. The parcel and the structure are owned by another entity that may be the hotel or the adjacent parcels, but we don't actually have a property interest in the existing gatehouse.
Okay, well, the reason I brought it up is if we did the gating and whatnot, I don't know if we want to restrict people from accessing the hotel. I don't want to affect their business or the marina. So it all depends on where you're going to put the...
We had talked about the gate in the past, that we would leave open the marina and the hotel facility and that stretch of road that goes from the entrance where you can go into the marina. Mm-hmm. That just past that, if you put a gatehouse in that area, in that stretch,
that'd be a lot easier.
It would catch the first condos on the right.
That would be a lot easier.
That would be the first thing. We'd have everything controlled going back, which...
I'll make a note then that we explore some sort of unmanned, kiosk type.
You were talking about something that can relate to the sheriff's department.
Yeah, that's a little different issue, but perhaps could be explored at the same time. The sheriff has incorporated and has already installed a large number of license plate reading cameras throughout the county, mostly on major arterial roads. But if you follow their technology guidelines in cases like this, to where our license plate reading camera is consistent with their technology requirements, then they could also monitor that at the 911 dispatch center, because they're currently doing that and have been for several years.
Okay, one other thing we'd have to check that just came to mind. The fire department, I'm not sure what their protocol is for gates trying to get out of the community.
The county's land development code requires you to have a B chip or X chip, whatever it is, that first responding units all have. That is a universal way for them to let themselves in any gated entry countywide.
So that would work for them, right?
Those codes currently exist.
No, we'd be past that anyway, right?
Well, if we move gate down, yeah,
Yeah.
but originally we planned on putting it up front, but it's just another reason
That's
to
too much.
keep it back on.
The final question I would have then is, how do you want to, and I'm asking you this, Mr. Chairman, if you have some neighborhood representatives or residents that you would want to work with Mr. Baird, you would just need to share that with me so that in turn we could contact them to see if they were willing to sort of be a little ad hoc committee for a couple of months to try and move the project forward.
The only person that jumps out at me right now would be Deb Jansen, because she seems to be pretty involved in that side over there. From Orchid Cove, I know Steve Gunther is pretty involved over there. Kay's Drive, Kevin's there. That's just my initial reaction, but there again, I think we should ask for volunteers because, you know, maybe Catherine Kalmeyer would want to do it. Whoever wants to do it, I think we should give them an opportunity. And I think they can be more than one person from a community as well. But, you know, more minds looking at this, the better.
Okay. With those comments, then we'll probably put a notice on the website, just providing an update, maybe a link to some of these concept sketches, and indicate that if residents have an interest in serving on a temporary ad hoc committee, that they contact the district manager, so in turn that Mr. Baird can help schedule some meetings here on site when we have final cost for both Union Road and some preliminary estimates as to what the individual kiosk security systems might entail, and then, you know, come back later in the fall and update the board.
One other thing before I forget it, while we go back, we were talking about having a bill over at the hotel that wasn't getting paid. I would like to ask our legal counsel, what steps can we do now? I mean, do you put a lien on that property? Do you add it to their tax assessments, which of course aren't getting paid either? They're being sold to on tax certificates. How do we handle that?
Isn't it part of their water bill? Shouldn't it be part of the water bill?
Unrelated repair to a main service line. What was it? Do we have a cost?
A little over $2,000.
About $2,000, Annalise, that has been invoiced but has not been paid.
I'm understanding that there's a lot of invoices floating around that aren't getting paid. So I think it's time that we make sure that we protect ourselves somehow. But I need guidance from our legal counsel, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may chime in, this is Tony. I suggest we do a final demand follow-up. We'll check the rules to see whether or not we could file a lien based upon the circumstances and the situation. And if so, we will advise the manager of that. And then if we don't get a favorable response within, I'll say, a 21-day time frame, file a small claims action against the property owners and or lien.
Before we get into all these liens and everything, can we shut their water down? Just like we threatened for non-payment of the water bill, that will turn the meter off and we got the bills paid right away. So can we go there with a repair like this? It was a major repair major threat to everything because he was losing hundreds of gallons a minute. Hundreds of gallons. So it had to be fixed. Can we shut the water down for that? That'd be the easiest way to collect the bill without getting into liens and all the fees.
Neil, I guess, I apologize. Neil, was it placed on a utility billing or a separate invoice, Kevin?
I'm going to say it was a separate billing, but if I'm incorrect, then I'll let y'all know through a separate email. And, you know, honestly, I think to the chairman's suggestion, I'd want to do a little research on your adopted administrative rules to see if other utility charges can be added or treated the same as an unpaid utility bill. That needs a little understanding.
Yeah, we'll work with Neil on that, and if we come to the opinion that a lien can be filed, we will so advise him and/or the ability to terminate the water service based upon any notice requirements, if any, in the rule. We'll work with Neil on that between now and the next board meeting.
Can we move forward on this before the next board meeting?
Yes, sir.
As a professional courtesy, staff contacted them last time and indicated that we were preparing to shut the water off to the hotel and notified the fire department. And as I recall, they paid their bill the next day.
Exactly.
So again, I think that we would probably go that route, but if it remains unpaid, we'll have a better answer as to our remedies when we see you at the September meeting.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, to your point, if we are of the opinion with Neil that the management has the ability under the rules and the processes to discontinue service and/or file a lien, we will so advise, so that can be take place before the next board meeting.
Okay. I just can't see putting a bunch of attorney fees into liens at this point when down the road we may have a lot bigger fish to fry with them at the hotel.
Understood. We'll be cost sensitive about that. Yes, sir.
One other thing, if I may, Annalise, the seawall there, that the major leaks that have all washed out since the hurricane and that kind of thing, is there anything ongoing about that in the county?
Not a thing. I sent in 2 emails to the person who was supposedly handling that. I never heard back from him. So I think maybe we should contact, I think his name is Don. Because he was not the person who was handling the seawall.
All right,
He was handling this. He was personally handling the parking lot, the boating, and all that. So,
Mr. Curtis here had some questions about the seawall and things. Would you like to speak on that at all? Or?
I can a little bit. I know that the county came out. The county came out and they approved whatever Tom did by the repair the dirt that they dumped in there. It re-washed out again. They put something over the top of it and they refilled it with dirt. And the county came out, from what I understand, and said, "Oh, that's okay." So
you approved that.
The county approved that, from what I gathered. I was not here, but it's not exactly what.
So both those pipes, Mr. Curtis here has an interest in that because the association for the boats may own a small portion of that seawall. There's some discussion with the attorneys about that. So there is interest here that gets repaired. Tom was very well aware of that. The pipes were broke. It was more than just filling of the dirt. I walked him through it personally, showed him the collection boxes, the breaks in the pipe, probably 2 or 3 days before he filled it with dirt and let it go. So I guess, Annalise, I would ask that maybe we go back to the county before we lose some seawall over there. And it gets to be a real mess, that we go back to the county and tell them that the dirt is not a fix and that we're looking for an actual repair on that piping in the seawall.
yeah, I'll see who else is, like I said, I never heard from the person who apparently approved that dirt fix. And I did send them 2 emails. I will see if I can find out who his boss is or who else could handle it. I'll do it first thing Monday.
We need to stay on top of of what's going on over there. I'm hearing some real negative things about people who are doing work for that aren't getting paid. So this is a pattern.
Okay. The final item that I have are the financial statements. These are as of June the 30th, which represents the end of the third quarter. A couple of highlights. You'll note on the balance sheet that the combined cash position at the end of the third quarter, just about $4,300,000. Additionally, there are some due froms back and forth between the two funds, but the overall cash position, just about $4.5 million. Total current assets, $4,788,000. There were $89,000 in payables that were outstanding at the end of the month. On the next page, I think perhaps the most favorable thing, you'll see that in both the general fund and the utility fund, there were substantial receipts during the month in terms of non-ad valorem assessments. The total, $170,000 in delinquent assessments were received as a result of the tax certificate auction. That then gives us fully budgeted revenues for the year at 96% of budgeted revenues. The difference being the fees that are collected from the tax collector and discounts that are paid for early payments.
If I may, real quick on that note, Kevin, I know we went after, we kind of hold the top 30 delinquent people or something, right? I think it's top 30.
Right, on the utilities.
Okay, and we collected most of that?
Yes.
Right, are we gonna
Maybe most of it.
are we going to the next 30?
We're continuing to move forward. In the last set of bills, eligible for shut-off, there were 2 people.
Okay.
So it's gotten much better.
A lot of them are now current.
Did we disconnect them?
I'll have to see for sure if it's happened yet, but there were 2 that were eligible. It was just recently.
Well, let's not threaten people and then not move, follow through.
No, the only exception in this case, Steve, that's a good question, is your current policy does not give me the authority to shut them off if the outstanding balance is less than 1 month's average bill for that residence. And so, let's just say,
That's fair.
Somebody balance, it's $100. I'm not going to shut their money off, but the penalties and interest charges will continue on until such time that it becomes a problem.
That sounds fair to me. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a good process for that.
Great.
I wanted the board to be aware that we had almost $19,000 in interest earnings for the month of June, which continues to be substantially over the original forecast. On the expense side of the report, I did want to flag a couple of things, but maybe with some little footnotes. For example, while engineering services are over budget year to date, we expense the utility rate analysis project against that same line item. So about $17,000 of the $45,000 that has been spent year to date was to pay for the cost of the utility rate analysis that was done earlier in the year, and also some updates to the capital improvement plan that were board authorized. Month to month, general representation costs have been almost entirely eliminated from that account with your new civil engineer. Also, year to date, we're a little over budget for generator maintenance in the water sewer account. We had some repairs there that occurred in the first quarter of the year that are tracking through. We're still under budget for the budget line item in that one particular regard. But year to date, for contracts for a generator, we're just a little bit over budget there, but it's not material. It's only about $2,000. And we're slightly over budget for utility billing year to date, but again, the total budget is $34,000, and year to date, we've spent about $30,000. So I think we'll finish the year, we'll probably be about $4,000 over budget there. Some of that entails some special mailings that we did in that regard. But overall, going into the fourth quarter, cash remains very strong. Spending overall for both accounts, we're about $230,000 under budget combined, just because we haven't fully expended all of that capital outlay that we had on the utility side. Utility capital outlay is $350,000 for the year. Year to date, we spent $100,000, but when the disc filters come and we begin to close out the year, I think we'll still be under budget overall by the end of the year, 3 months from now.
Neil, going back to the engineering, that you're saying that we are over budget on that, so I'm going to have to stand corrected. We may be over budget, but how much of that $45,000 is going to be reimbursed to us because of working with Lindsay Case and some of these other people that are required to pay the engineering costs?
But between our FEMA eligibility, where we're advancing funds in anticipation that we'll be reimbursed, and the billings associated with Mr. Case's review of the plat and other contract documents, as I said, at this point, we're not really spending any money at all. And it also with my note that we expense the utility rate analysis against that line item as opposed to creating a new. I think your total engineering costs for the entire year of a general nature will be probably less than $10,000.
Wow. Yeah. Good job, guys. And like you say, a lot of this stuff that we're spending money on is also this FEMA work that will probably recoup. So I understand if someone in the general public is looking at just our line items in our financial reports, how they could not quite understand the full nature of this. That's why it's important to come to a meeting to actually find out what's going on rather than just show up in a meeting and throw out accusations. Thank you.
Understood. That concludes my portion of the agenda today. We'll take us down to the attorney's report and the update on parcel 13. Either Tony or Lenore, I'll let you just indicate where we are in regard to that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. And I provided this week to the board a couple memorandums. One was I'll call it my initial memorandum with regards to our office's review of the documents that were resubmitted to us on August 6th, 2024. And those documents were a resubmittal of the plans and plats that were revised by the developer. It appears to be in response to comments made by Collier County and perhaps made by the district back in our correspondence back in July of this year. We then, in reviewing it again, we further looked at it, and the way the agreement reads, the post-closing agreement says the district has 60 days to approve, I'm paraphrasing, approve or disapprove the proposed plans 60 days after submittal. As I provided, I'll call it my last updated sort of addendum to the memorandum, saying that from our opinion is that 60-day clock restarted again because there was a resubmittal of the plats and plans on August 6th, which takes the review period to October 5th. And we sent an email to that effect to Francesca Pasadomo and Michael Dellett, the attorney and engineer for Mr. Case. Francesca Pasadomo replied that, and I think you can see it in the materials that I sent out to the board members separately this week, that that law firm is no longer involved and for us to deal with Mr. Dillett on all matters. And so then I sent the same email to Mr. Dillett with regards to our position about the time frame. And I also sent him a copy of our office memorandum. We recommend that the board not approve the resubmitted plans and plat. And we still have some issues with the original submittal. And then the engineer also provided his comments, and I believe I attached that to the email to Mr. Dillon, and I believe to the board. So at this point in time, our recommendation to the board is that the board send a letter out today. That way we definitely achieve the time frame to respond. The board reflect that the board does not approve the plats and plans for parcel 13 as submitted back in June and resubmitted on August 6th to the district, while reserving the right to make additional comments because the review time has now been extended until October 5th. That's our recommendation. And also, if you have any other comments from the board, any other comments that the board wishes to make or add to the communication to Mr. Dillett on behalf of Lindsay Case as to the review and disapproval of the submitted plans and plat.
Mr. Dillon works for the engineering company, correct?
Dillett, yes, sir.
So they don't have a legal counsel that we can talk to now then?
It does not, we have not yet been contacted by any other attorney indicating they represent Mr. Case in this development. And Francesca Passos Domo's email stated we need to work with Mr. Dillett on this.
And in summary of what you sent to us in the last couple of weeks, it appears that your objection is based on the fact that we addressed multiple issues and only a handful of those were addressed. So it's not us trying to hold up the project, because we certainly don't want to do that. It's the fact that they're picking and choosing what they're going to address, and until they address all those issues, we're not going to approve this as a board, under my opinion. Of course, it's a whole full board that would make that decision, but that's essentially why you're making that recommendation, correct?
Yes, sir. The resubmittal of August 6th and anyways, waiting that period of time to resubmit and then trying to achieve the deadline to the board meeting.
At this time, can we ask real quick? Lindsay, are you out there? Mr. Case, are you out there?
Okay,
I tried to call him and ask him, sorry, Russ. I tried to call and talk to him about this, and I didn't get an answer.
Okay, I need 5 minutes for Tony. Okay, I went through the whole list on your July 18th memorandum. Okay, and about everything that needs to be reviewed and corrected. Yeah, it started off with roads not named correctly. That was a GIS review, then a county attorney review. There were 7 items. Stormwater corrections, 10 items. Engineering review, 30 corrections. Engineering survey and review, 12 corrections. Engineering utilities review, 2 corrections. Fire review, 2 corrections. Landscape review, 10 corrections. Transportation pathways review, 6 corrections. Transportation planning review, 13 corrections. Zoning review, 6 corrections, and by the time you're done, that's almost 100 corrections. So my question is, since that time, what have they done?
Well, there was, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In the submittal that was sent on to the district on August 6th, included in that was a response back to Collier County. And it's called submittal 2 is how that was characterized. In that submittal 2, the developer and agents replied and responded to the various comments from the initial county review letter. And that submittal 2 letter again, addressed some of the issues. Those were the county's issues. Those weren't necessarily the district issues per se. Those were the county's issues.
Okay, because it says that the county allows you to do it 4 times, and then after that, they recommend rejection. So we're on number 2 already?
Yes, the county, let me pull that up if I may. The county, let's see here, let me find that. I'll retrieve that real quickly. The document, the links, for example, the links that was in the email from Michael Dellett that went to the board members, or from Francesca, Michael Dellett had that submittal number 2 in there. And so there's a response, submittal number 2. I'm retrieving it now from my files. If I have good, yes, I have good service. So if you give me 1 minute to do that.
I'm sorry. Do you think that we should be dealing with an engineering firm without being represented by a law firm by Mr. Case?
Yes, sir. I think the way the agreement reads, doesn't the reflect that we only deal with the attorney to that. So I think we, out of an abundance of caution, to respond to that resubmittal, whether or not we've been notified they have another return.
Tony, you're breaking up.
Because we have that time frame in there. So if we don't respond to this, that we acquiesce in that resubmittal set.
Sorry, Tony, we missed all of that. We got a bad feed.
I'll try again. The screen's kind of frozen here. Can you hear me?
We sure can now.
I will. I'll repeat that. The fact that, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
You're kind of slow. Okay. Mr. Case, the fact that he does or does not have an attorney yet that has we've not yet been notified he has another attorney. The agreement that between the district and Mr. Case doesn't require that there be an attorney for us to respond. The district has an obligation to approve or disapprove within a time frame. So out of abundance of caution, we believe we need to reply and respond and let them sort it out at their end as to how they want to handle it from
Well, can't we just talk to her? I have one more thing I want to add to all that. Okay, it says that there's stipulations and it has to do with approval of Port of the Island utilities. That's in there. And one of the things they wanted to do, they wanted to irrigate with their pond water.
Yeah, we've consistently indicated that's not allowed.
That's not going to happen, right? They have to be part of the community.
That's correct. That's going to be part of the letter. Would just say we disapprove of the plans, including the proposal to irrigate well water. That they have to connect to the district's reclaimed water distribution system.
Okay.
Well, and there was problems with the green space and access and all sorts of things that weren't addressed.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why we suggest that our memorandum and the engineer's memorandum be attached to a letter of disapproval from the district, because they corrected some of the open space, but not all the open space, because you have the site plan that's in the various documents that's not totally complied with.
What about the utility costs, the moving of the pipeline and all that stuff?
That was listed in the draft, my memorandum
Yep.
discusses that. So again, that forms part of the basis for disapproval also, in our opinion.
I make a motion that we disapprove of this.
I second.
Hold on.
Wait, hang on a
Hang
second.
on a second. I just had a question before we get into that. Tony, it came up the last time when he said that he didn't think he was going to pay his $528,000 by September 22nd. We talked about a 6-month extension with an application fee of $60,000, those kinds of things. Did you get a chance, you didn't have the contract last time, did you get a chance to look at that no later than clause that's in there in two different places in the amendments?
Yes, it talks about, and I have it with me here, if I can spread out on my little hotel room table here. The agreement talks about the payments in the various timeframes for payment. And by the way, just back to Mr. Tish's comment, the response letter back to the county was August 5th and was submittal number 2, and that went on for multiple pages. But on the agreement, it's called, I have it here.
It's under F or G in the amendments for the no, it's in two places because we had an earlier amendment that had the no later than clause in there, which requires him to pay no later than September 22nd of 24. And then in a later amendment, it's in there again, but he copied the language of that earlier amendment and included that in the later amendment. So I would think it stands. The no later than clause definitely stands. Is that true or false?
Yes, let me pull up all the agreements. Bear with me. I have my laptop up and open with regards to the developer documents.
It's on the amendments. At the end of the amendments, that's where it comes up both times.
Well, the addendum, you mean, to the contract, Mr. Truckee, or?
Yes, it's in the amendments. There's several amendments, A through.
Correct. Yeah, and the final, those were amendments, ended up with basically 5 to the sales contract. But the closing agreement on utility ERCs talks about shall make payments. It talks about it subject to extensions, reasonable extensions due to force majeure events, not less than the 528 for 33 utility ERCs no later than September 22nd, then it goes on. And then they can accelerate it or prepay it if he wishes to. Then,
exactly.
Then in paragraph 6, it says upon the failure of the buyer to timely pay any of the amounts outlined in paragraph 4, which was the dates to pay, September 22nd, 24, September 22nd, 25, and September 22nd, 2026. It says upon the failure to timely pay any of the amounts outlined in paragraph 4, the seller, which is the district, shall send a buyer a written notice of non-payment and default. And it talks about it below. And then paragraph 7 of the agreement says, if the buyer, which is case, fails to timely pay any of the amounts outlined in paragraph 4 within 30 days after receipt of the notice of default, then all seller-owned utility ERCs for which buyer has not timely made payment will no longer be reserved, not assigned or allocated or assigned to the property or buyer, and the agreement stands terminated. So that's in the current closing agreement for utility ERCs. That fleshes out the details of what was in the sales contract plus the amendments.
My question for you, Tony, is this time when we adjourn this meeting and we come back in September, we're coming back 2 days before his $528,000 payment is due. Is it due on a Sunday? I think our meeting is on Friday. So I'm asking you, the contract, the way it stands, do we have a case against me? He said we did not. He didn't think we did. And
well, I guess the question is, what do you mean a case is, can we enforce our agreement? Yes.
Yes, exactly.
That's my opinion. Yes, sir.
So on the 22nd, you would send out a 30-day notice.
If that's the board's direction. Yes, and if the 22nd on a Sunday, you said, Dan?
Yes, I believe our meeting's September 20th.
If it's a Sunday, then it would roll to, it would roll. I would argue, just to be, again, cautious, treat it as the 23rd, which is a Sunday. And then that note, if payment is not received by the 23rd, then if the board so directs today, in fact, we can have a conversation on that Friday also as a follow-up to confirm, then a letter, a notice of default can go out within 30 days after that, right away.
Okay.
In fact, we can
We
send it out right away. You're right, we can send it out right away and give them 30 days to pay. So
I'm
as
just
soon as, I'm sorry?
I'm just trying to prepare a little bit for our next meeting, because we're gonna come into that next meeting with a weekend in between getting all these notices out and our meeting. And I want to be a little prepared for that, because he stated pretty solidly that he didn't think he was gonna pay that. So,
We will have a draft notice of default letter prepared and have it in your agenda book as a draft on for the next board meeting.
all right, because we offered him the extension, it's there, it's waiting for him, he can have that if he likes it. He's got a month to think about that till our next meeting, and after that, I don't think we waste a lot of time. After that, if he does not take the extension or does not buy it out, let's say, then I think I don't want to waste a lot of time between then and when we notice him.
No, very good. Like I said, we will have a draft letter in the agenda packet for our next board, the board's next meeting.
Just playing devil's advocate here. Let's just say he decides he's not going to take the $60,000 extension, and he defaults after the 30 days. If I'm understanding correctly, that default just means he loses his reservation of those ERCs. Do we have to do anything to change the cost of those ERCs before he would, if he came back then, say, a month later and wanted to pay him off? How do we have to wait until change our, and I think we do we have to wait and change our rules of operations before we can do that? I think that's what Neil maybe alluded to before.
Yeah, we would need to work with Rostellis and come up with that number, if that's what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we will work with them in between now and then.
Okay, because I think if we have to go down this road, which I dearly hope that we don't, I'd like to see that, the ERCs reflect more about what their value really is now, which I believe is more than 16,000.
Yeah, I'll get with Neil and work with Rostellis between now and the next board meeting. One other aspect in the, if you notice in my memorandum, is the letter of availability for utilities was predicated upon, the agreement and the reservation, but it said that there were no, that any utility service was conditioned upon paying for those ERCs. So the letter that went back to my letter that was sent back to the county by the developer's engineer just corrected one section. That's why my memorandum referenced the balance of my letter, which I think was important. And with the board's indulgence also, we will send my memorandum to the county so they have that when they review the resubmittal.
Yeah, because he would no longer have water rights, and I'm going to guess that would probably stop any permitting.
It could have an effect on his ability to get his planning, yes, sir.
So there was a motion and a second to vote to consider denying the plat approval.
The plans and plat approval. Yeah, to disapprove, to not approve the submitted and resubmitted plans and plat.
Correct. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Additionally, under the attorney's report, there was a license agreement with Southern Exposure following the board discussion from last month. Either Tony or Lenore, anything further as it pertains to that dockage agreement?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lenore.
I think what Tony wanted to know with regard to this license agreement was whether there was a specific spot on the seawall where you would want people to tie up.
Probably, yes. I would want them to work on probably the area closer to the highway rather than right next to the condos.
Okay.
Just keep the complaints down.
Tony, did you have something else?
No, and I think, I apologize, Lenore, it was just in light of the conversation with regards to the request from South Florida Water Management District, what we may also do is put in this license agreement that we can terminate it upon the district for the island CID entering into an agreement with South Florida Water Management District for use of the property. That way we don't have them running into each other. So that's the only suggested change we would make to what we put in the agenda packet, subject to any other additions or changes the board wishes to make.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve with those two additions?
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
Motion and a second by Ms. Hanson. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further on the attorney's report?
I did have an update on the 2 litigation cases that I wanted to present quickly, if that's okay with everyone. We have 2 litigation cases. Currently, one of them is with Prep Math and Alligator Boys. Currently, where that sits is Mr. Dorrell's deposition was taken back in March. Plaintiff's counsel terminated that deposition and now has filed a motion to compel to reset the deposition. So we're working with them to get some dates and to get some specific notice about the additional topics that they would like to depose the corporate representative on. So not too much going on in that case. That case, if you recall, every time a boat slip is sold in that particular case, any potential damages are being reduced. Plaintiff's counsel has not pushed that case at all. And just for everyone's knowledge, I don't know when the last time you really went over what this claim is for declaratory judgment. And what they're essentially asking in this case is for the court to make a determination that Port of the Islands improperly increased and levied annual assessments. And this is a case that was filed back in 2019. Now, the interesting part about a declaratory judgment is you're not asking the court to award damages per se. You're not asking for a monetary award. You're asking just for a determination. We've had some discussions with plaintiff's counsel previously, and that particular fact made discussions a little bit difficult. And also the other thing I'd like to just say briefly is under Florida law, you are only entitled to recover reasonable attorney's fees in 2 situations. One is if a contract provides for attorney's fees. The other is if there's a statutory provision for attorney's fees. With a declaratory judgment, there is not any entitlement to attorney's fees. So with this case, we have the option to try to request a formal mediation to see whether or not we can resolve this case. And so if that's something that you all would like to do, then we would request a closed door session with you all so we could discuss that.
For that.
Excuse me, Lenore, I spoke with Tony here a day or 2 ago. I have had discussions with Scott Preppen and asked him if he would be open to the idea of doing mediation or arbitration. And because this case is 5 years old now, we need to get this off our books. Tony said that he agrees that he thinks that would be a good way to go if they would do this. I do believe that, like you say, Lenore, we are on solid ground, and I think that'll come out in mediation just as well as it would come out in a court of law anyway. And most judges are going to ask for mediation previous to anything going to trial anyway. So I think that we should actively pursue the mediation idea, and let's get this cleaned up and off our books. The same thing with Cal Teagues. we don't need these distractions anymore. The facts are the facts, and dragging this out over years isn't going to change the facts. It's just raising our attorney's fees up. So it's time to just deal with this. And like I said, Kreplin was very. He said, he said, Steve, you and I have we think a lot alike on this situation. You know what? Let's just get this taken care of. How does the board feel about that?
I agree.
I agree.
Agree.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
So then we're going to request a closed door meeting so that we can discuss the litigation. The subject matter of that meeting would be confined to settlement negotiations and strategy related to the litigation. So that's what we'll need to do. That will need to be noticed and set at a time in the future.
That's with the whole board, the whole board, or just the chairman and the lawyer?
With the whole board.
Whole board.
Tony, anything else you want to add to that?
No, and hopefully if the board's of the mindset to, as the chairman mentioned, to kind of move this along, is to have that closed door session on the next board meeting date, whether it be after the regular public meeting, we can have that so as not to have the public wait. And then, so that could be set for half an hour each, I think would be sufficient for us to bring the board up to date on other aspects and discuss approaches, and then come out into an open session and get more direction if necessary.
We would have to have a stenographer for that, correct?
That's correct. A court reporter is required, and a court report, and then a transcript has to be typed up and then sent to Neil and kept confidential and exempt until the conclusion of the litigation. Yes, sir.
So do we need to have this meeting and raise this expense? Can we not just go directly to, well, I've already talked to Scott and he's up for it. All we have to do is determine, you know, the process that we go through to pick a mediator, and you and I discussed that. The board's already decided that that's the direction they want to go. I don't know why we need to have more of a strategy meeting. Our strategy is to go to a mediator. If we can decide on a mediator, then have then have a meeting about how you want to deal with it. But it just seems like an unnecessary step to me. That's just my opinion. I'm not an attorney, so you correct me if I'm wrong.
No, sir, that's a good approach, and that's a doable, workable approach. And we will follow that approach. And then if the mediation produces, the mediations with public bodies are a bit different, because any mediation is, say there's a settlement agreement that's reached at mediation, it's always subject to final board approval and open session. So that's an approach we could take. That's a good approach, Mr. Chairman.
Does the rest of the board agree?
I agree.
I agree. I also think if we're going to look at Cal's Premier lawsuit, we should do that at the same time rather than have another closed session. Right? Can we do that? Combine the two, or no? Does it have to be two separate ones?
Are you asking if separate mediation?
Well,
We were hoping not to do that meeting that we were just discussing.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm confused then. So
Well, let's do this. Does anyone else have any questions on the prep MAC? Otherwise, then I'll switch over to the.
Yeah, we want to mediate prep MAC, right? As much as possible. Get rid of it. Okay.
Okay. So,
anyway, we can do it.
Sure, understood. And then we have the second lawsuit in which the district is the plaintiff, and it's a lawsuit against Premier District Management and Calvin T. That lawsuit was filed this year, and in the last 2 weeks, we've had quite a lot of flurry, if you will, in this case. So I'll just give you a brief update on what's happened recently. We have filed and have set for hearing a motion for accelerated hearing under section 119.11. That is currently set for hearing September 27th. We also, on the 8th of August, received the response to our request for production. And so that's really what the lawsuit is about, is getting back these records. And so we received a humongous production, amount of documents, and Neil and Kevin have started going through some of those documents. We received a second set in our office yesterday, was unable to open that link. We've gone back to them to try to get a new link so we can get those open. But if you want to give any update on the documents that you've reviewed to date, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, go ahead. I've looked through the first set that was sent, and it didn't appear to be anything new. It appeared to be the same things that we had received originally. And then there's the second set, which we haven't been able to see yet, but I would anticipate that could be something or not. We'll find out.
Okay, so we're using resources for you to review all this old information. And to what end where are we going with this? I mean, what's going to be the result?
Well,
and how long is it going to go on? It's continued attorney fees. I had them give me, I guess, what year, just for this year, we spent, what, $7,800 in legal fees on this lawsuit, which is, it's a nuisance for Callan. It's probably going to be a nuisance for us. If there isn't any information that's going to be valuable to the district that they're giving you, is any of that history or is any of that valuable in any way?
Well, the district has the duty and obligation to take back any documents that it doesn't have. So that's what we're trying to do, is to figure out what they've given us so far as compared to what we already have. And our hope is, we do know that we're missing some documents. So what we're hoping is that we're going to find those documents in these batches. But again, the second batch, we don't know what's in there yet. So it's just a matter of what we find in those documents. And let me just say a few more things. We do have the deposition is set for October in this case, and we've requested dates to take Mr. Teague's deposition, and we're waiting to hear back about that. So that actually, to your point, that's really going to be crucial for us, is to actually be able to depose him and ask him about these specific documents. But, it's my understanding, based on the affidavit that Mr. Dorrell signed, that we do know that there are documents missing that we are trying to get back.
So the documents are just history, right?
No, if I may jump in, no, they're the public records of the district, and the big issue is it does not appear that what was transmitted and transferred over to your new custodian, your new manager, were all the records of the district, and that's critical. You have public records and emails going back that we don't believe were ever provided, that should have been provided. And then, as Neil mentioned, when we had the comment by the auditor about the utility issues, and Neil also being at a disadvantage because not having depreciation schedule, there's significant other documents we believe that should have been provided that were not provided. And if he failed to maintain them, then there's another issue right there, because he had an obligation as custodian district manager to maintain all the records of the district in conformance with the retention records requirements of state law. And it's more than just a history, Russ.
We've spent a bunch of money trying to recreate engineering files and all that sort of stuff that we never should have had to spend money on because he didn't provide them to us.
We think it's significant, Mr. Kish. And I think the fact that we have that request for the accelerated hearing scheduled in September, we're trying to get Mr. Teague's deposition set for October. And that deposition, also a representative of the district can be there in attendance. So we'll coordinate that aspect. But we think it's important that the integrity of the district records be maintained, and the district have a full history of the records that should have been transferred.
And Russ, if we're successful on this, and we more than likely will be, that $7,500 that we've already spent on this will be on Mr. Teague's tab.
Yeah, we asked for attorney's fees. That's correct, Mr. Chairman. That's correct.
Okay, so we'll at least get the legal fees back.
That's part of our request.
Well, yes, that statutory section does provide for prevailing party attorney's fees. Reasonable attorney's fees, always.
Well, Tony's reasonable, right?
Well,
yes, sir.
We're really not at a reduced rate on these, so I would maintain they are reasonable, but that's always the term of art, if you will.
All right.
Anything further?
Kevin had to leave, I just.
I noted, Mr. Barrett, has left at 11:17. Anything else, Lenore or Tony?
No,
Not
sir.
unless I have questions on the litigation, no.
Okay. I don't have any noted old or new business, so that would take us down to other supervisor requests. If any.
Don't have any requests. I was just gonna go through a couple things quick on the grants. They did turn down the SCADA system on a grant, and we're back into that again. We're sending them some pictures and some things, and they put it back on the table. So that was one of the grants. They said it was flood water related, and we said it's not. Great.
Yeah, wind-driven rain.
So just the process going on with FEMA grants, and it looks like now they might actually take it. So we're working on those. The other grants, the road, the permitting for the new line from the wells to the plant is being worked on right now with the county, or with the state and the DEP. We're permitting that, the wellheads, raising the wellheads to be prepared for more floodwaters. That's going on right now. We're actually doing some of the engineering on that to raise all the wellheads, put the pump, submerge the pump on the third well. The first two have been done before, but the third one never was. So we're submerging the pump on the third well. We're putting a new electrical box, raising the boxes up to keep all the good stuff in the boxes, all the components safe for next time, so we don't have to do this again the next time it floods. So I don't know what else we have. The grant still working on the canal side. That one's kind of in the infant stages of the grant because we put that one in this year, not that long ago. So that's just going through all the paperwork and trails, the red tape that you have to do to get that moving. But the generator trailers, they're much closer now to actually receiving some generator trailers under a grant. So like he said, when the power went out on it didn't transfer over correctly because of mud dauber or something when we had the hurricane roll through here a short time ago. We'll have two more brand new generator trailers that can either go out there or go to one of the lift stations that might shut down with a power outage. So we'll have 4 generator trailers in total. If we get those 2 on the grant, then they're worth, I think it's about $80,000 a piece, I think, on the grant.
Mr. Truckee,
yes.
Before we forget then, we also need to look at storage for those that are above the floodplain prior, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're currently, in order to continue the grant, we had to give them something, so we gave them the location over lately, yeah, that they'd be able to be stored at. And then if we ever come up with storage here on site that qualifies, we can move them.
Very good.
We still have the water tank, a brand new 250,000 gallon water tank that will give us more capacity for situations like bad storms or something where we have issues with pumps or wind or electricity or whatever. We'll have a new 250 gallon storage tank on site here. And that's moving along kind of at a snail's pace, but it's moving anyway. Right. It's still in the grant pool, which they eliminate every time you talk to them. They've eliminated a couple more, but now they're down to a point where the money's there and we're still in it. So that's looking real good for a storage tank. Anything else?
No, for the wellheads, raising the wellheads and the electrical, I see Jared has finalized what we were waiting for, so
Okay.
That's gonna be done.
Total prices, I think, what was our total on that? 500 something.
I think it's around 500 something.
Yeah, it's over $500,000 to raise the wellheads and electrical boxes and things so we won't continue to have problems out there. So when we're all done, if this all comes through on a grant, most of it right now, some of the mitigation can fall under a 75-25, but most of it so far is running under the 100% with engineering fees included in that. So it's looking good if we can keep going with it, if we can stay in there. It's looking real good to get that up on, from the wellheads to the building will be totally rebuilt and raised for the flood issues and everything, which will be a big step to the infrastructure. And then we'll start tackling the pipe and stuff that comes out of the building and starts heading to the community. That's getting old too, and we have to work on that. But just to clarify that some of the capital improvement projects that we're not doing anything with, we actually have a lot of work going into some of the capital improvement projects and where we have to be. So that's where we're at.
Say, Dan, is there any way that we can have this staged so that when this money does become available, that we can have contractors and stuff in place ready to go, so that we don't wait another 6 months after that, you know?
That would make a lot of sense, okay? However, FEMA does not appreciate it when you get ahead of them.
Okay.
And warned by the grant writer time and time again not to get ahead of FEMA, that it'll work out in our benefit to work with FEMA and not get ahead of them. So we had to be very careful that we didn't okay the engineering and things until they were ready and stuff like that. So although we would like to speed it up, we tried, but we're also being careful and cautious because people have lost their grant money by getting ahead of FEMA and doing what they want, and then FEMA comes in and says, well, this is what we required and you didn't do that, so there goes your grant money. So we have to be very careful on that.
Very good, Dan. Thank you for that. Thank you, and Kevin as well. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Minor, real minor. What do we ever do with about the no fishing signs on the bridge? Because there aren't any. I mean, I don't know if that was a state thing or any idea. They were there and now they're gone.
This is the first time I've heard of it, but they have a district office here.
Yeah.
They were taken down. We can make a request to have them put back up or something.
I don't know what happened to them. They're gone. And the other one's
both sides?
Yeah.
They probably went in the canal when they threw ours in as well.
Maybe. Okay, we're gonna redo some of this stuff when we do the landscaping. So the ponding in front of the marina and the firehouse, that should go away with landscaping, I would think.
I don't know, Kevin's not here.
Well, I mean, we could address it.
Yeah, I wasn't dealing with it.
Yeah. We already talked about the gates. The other thing is, I don't know why it makes it look abandoned to me, but they used to have a top light on the top of the hotel over there, and it's been out.
Did it cupola up there?
Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't like it out. It looks abandoned. Yeah, it's like, I see it, a mile down the road when you're coming in, and is there any way we can get somebody on that, even if we have to pay for it, I mean, it just, I don't know. I just don't like it dark.
We can talk to Tom about it, and have to talk to Tom. Well, we might replace a light bulb.
But I mean, we'll tell them we'll pay for it. I would pay for the bulb or whatever. I mean, it can't be that much unless there's a line problem or something. But yeah, I'd like to get that fixed.
Okay. I would, unless there's some inherent public benefit, I would stop short of saying that we need to repair it or we need to.
It's aesthetic value, yes. Aesthetic.
Well, tell you what, I do have the maintenance guy's number.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just give the maintenance guy a call and ask him if he would want to take care of that.
Yeah, if you'll get that to Kevin, we'd be happy to try and if they have some guy, handyman or somebody that does general maintenance stuff, we'd be happy to follow up. Steve and Elise?
I've got a couple things. Going back to the negotiations that we've been having with the county as far as getting the old hotel property, is there any advancement on that?
No, I will see the deputy county manager who was here with Commissioner LaCastro at a budget hearing before I see you. I'll make it a point, they seem to come down on the side of either issuing a request for qualifications or giving some consideration to conveying that property to the district. They seem to be inclined to want to issue a request for qualifications first. But I'll see him before I see you guys in September, and I'll remind him that they offered to develop that RFQ.
Let's keep pushing on that hard so that we don't forget about it and it doesn't fall through the cracks. The other thing is there was that hole in the street over there by the marina too. I don't know that it got patched. When I come back, I'll go and buy a couple of bags of hot asphalt and fill that myself. Oh, and then of course I said before, I asked Soto to mow the lawn over there. I'm paying him to mow mine at the same time, unless Dan Truckee offered to mow my property. So either way to go, Dan.
That's
Got nothing to do.
take sombrero on and get on that mower with a set of earmuffs and just waste some time.
Yeah, you could be like me. I feel like I'm Forrest Gump when I'm out there on that little mower.
Annalise?
I'm good.
Okay. Any final public comments?
Just a background, 9 years of law enforcement, owned a security company that stretched throughout Texas and Oklahoma. Had a contract with Alfred Beatty as they changed from gated type systems for military housing to license plate recognition cameras. I would say a couple things. Also, I kind of represent the marina, so if we did gates beyond the marina, you're leaving out 175 plus the hotel. License plate cameras, as long as you can tie into the county, I think would be the way to go, with giant signs that say, hey, notice your license plates are being recorded.
So you would like to see that before the marina driveway?
I think it would be best, because you're leaving out, I mean, we have cameras throughout the marina.
Right.
But, yeah, I think it would be, as far as the community goes, we've got 175 more parcel owners that are on that side of it. But the negative side of it, I understand the negative side of it, you also have a parking lot that's there that gives a back way around those cameras, which you probably want to keep over close to the guardhouse. I think the problem with a lot of people coming in and out of the marina, we've had the issues with stolen rods, fishing gear, and stuff like that.
We have that too.
It happens on the other side of the days, and then it happens off Newport usually during the fishing tournaments. But having a little bit of license plate recognition, you kind of help Collier County get it going where they need to go. Because I think everybody's been caught was down by Everglades City. So I don't think we have a problem internally in our community with that. But I think,
so you're for the gates, or the recognition?
I don't think the gates are going to help. I think the ROI on the gates, as far as helping property values, I think by the time you look at the gates and then manning of the gates and the operational maintaining of them, I don't think you're going to find a very good return other than you're in a gated community. But
so just the recognition, pictures, license plates, who's coming in and out?
it does a better job, and the key to that is this signage, because that's what's going to reduce, when they think, oh, I got cameras everywhere, and they're recognizing my license plate. Maybe I don't want to do this, because it's going to pop, depending upon whether or not how we tie that system in to Collier County, or just a direct system that recognizes, hey, these are all the people that live here, and we have to have a way to say, okay, well, I bought another car, add it to the mix, whether it be a cloud-based solution or an NVR-based solution is going to be different, but the cameras and the signage is probably would be the best bet.
Excuse me. Thank you for that input. Would you possibly have time to volunteer some of your time to help us get that done?
How did I see that coming? Yeah, I will try. I'm kind of in and out flying airplanes and all the place in the Bahamas. I'll try to help out where I can. Yes.
We're all busy, buddy. But it sounds like you've got the background, so whatever help that you could give us would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any, Curtis, before you leave, can we get your contact information for the committee?
Thanks.
If there are no other public comments, then
Hey, Neil.
you're next.
Neil,
Yes.
it's Steve Gunther. I've got a couple things for you. First of all, there was a accident or something that happened out on Union Road and 41 where a vehicle heading, I believe, westbound went off the road. It took out the stop sign. As well, it took out the sprinkler controller that I believe is CID property there. If you go out that way, you'll see the concrete post that sprinkler controller was mounted on still laying down in the grass there. This happened, gosh, it's been a few weeks ago. We tried to reach out with Kevin. It's unfortunate that he left. Never got any response from him about taking care of that, but I want to make sure that the board and the CID is aware of that, and that you work with Soto to get that repaired. I mean, obviously the sprinklers aren't running this time of year, but it seems like I don't want to see that fall away. So anybody else on the board have any comments on that?
Seems like I saw a memo to Soto and I thought it was fixed, but
It's not fixed. I was just there yesterday, unless it was done in the last 24 hours. Yeah, it has not been repaired. Okay, great. Good to hear that it's being addressed. We never got any feedback on that. So that's good. The second thing is, as far as the mowing, again, I'd rather not see mowing of the Union Lake property on the CID board. Please, if anybody has any questions or concerns with that, have them contact me. And the third thing is on all these discussions on the security of the entrances to the various neighborhoods in the community. I think we've kind of been left out on the Orchid Cove side of any of those discussions, and I would ask that any of those discussions are happening, that you can start with me, and we might designate someone else in our community to be the participate in that, but we would like to be involved in those discussions.
Didn't I mention your name as one of the people that we would work with?
Yeah, you did. No, you're fine, Steve. I'm not coming after. It's just, it seems like there's some people in the community that are pushing on the board to do all the security things, but I think let's make sure it's for everybody in the community, not just their neighborhood.
right.
That's my point. Okay, so if there are discussions, then please let's have representation from everybody, because it seems like this is pretty far down the line. And I'd heard some things a few months ago, but it seems like, yeah, it's gone a long way. Nothing against the board, clearly. I just think there's some people that are carrying their agendas privately.
Not aware of this, so.
That's all. That's the question. Thank you.
Meeting is September the 20th, and with that, you can entertain a motion to adjourn, and Mr. Truckey's record for running meetings in less than an hour was shot today.
Way to go, Dan.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. See you in a month.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.